Hello, I'm Matt Runia with the Runia Financial Group. PSI has recently inquired our services to determine which contract lease work best for them. So we're going to start off by detailing some quick facts about this lease contract. Now it's between PSI and G Incorporated for 3 levels of office space for a 10-year term. The issue arises with how much money and what years you're going to receive it for. G initially proposed that they would pay in the first 3 years $5,000 each year. In the next 7 years, they pay $10,000 each year. You guys came back and thought maybe earning $10,000 in the first year, $9,000 in the second year, $8,000 in the third year, and continually decreasing by $1,000 increments until you hit year one where you're only earning $1,000 work best for PSI. You guys want us to figure out what contract would most benefit PSI's net income and revenue. To start, we're going to need to figure out exactly what type of lease this is. To start, we're going to look at some of the things that weren't mentioned in the contract. There was no mention of transfer of ownership. So you guys will retain the asset. You guys aren't allowing them a bargain purchase price option. And there's no value guarantee at the end. And the life of the asset will surely keep going after the lease is up, because it's office space. It's not going to become useless after 10 years. So from that, we can determine that this is a standard operating lease. Now, in both contracts, there's uneven payments, which require a little bit different treatment according to US GAAP. That quote there is basically saying that we have to recognize it on a straight line basis. So we have to recognize the same amount of asset every year for each contract. And in this case, you can't use the unless there's another systematic and rational basis that is more representative, because there doesn't appear to be anything. It just appears to be what is best for our company at this time, not anything tied to the value of the asset or the useful life of the asset. So we can safely determine that this is an operating lease, and we need to use a straight line basis to record it. Now, how do you implement this straight line? Well, it's fairly simple. Under G's proposed contract there, you're earning $85,000 over the course of 10 years. You divide that by 10, which gives you $8,500 per year. And in their contract, in the first 3 years, you're only receiving $5,000. So you need to make up for that $3,500 in some form of an asset, and we put it in your lease receivable account, because you're going to make up that money later on in the contract. Whereas with a PSI proposed contract, it's the opposite. You're earning more than the average of $5,500. So you need to decrease your asset and we put it in an unearned revenue account. But by the end of the lease term for both of these, the unearned revenue and the lease receivable should amount to being zero, because it is an average, and you're either starting off high and low and then just meeting in the middle by the end. So now we're going to look at a deep dive into some of the comparison numbers of this. Under G's contract, again, you're earning $85,000 total, $30,000 more than with your contract. So from just that point, it seems that G's contract would be better suited for you guys, because you didn't mention anything about wanting to buy an asset, about needing that money upfront in the first 3 years. You guys are simply wanting to increase your net income and revenue for the company. And G's contract will do that off first glance. Now, looking at a more in-depth look, we calculate the inflation and the compound interest you can earn on this money you received. So just to start, we're going to look at G. You can see that you earn $5,000 first 3 years, $10,000 the next 7. And we used the government website, Bureau of Labor Statistics, to calculate inflation. And so for the first number, stake, for example, you're going to lose about $1,000 of value if you keep that $5,000 underneath your mattress due to inflation, which comes out to be about an average of 2% per year. And we did that for every principal payment that you would receive, adjusted for the amount of years you would have it. And so then for the investment, we assume that you guys are going to invest this money. You guys have no need for it, really, at least not that you stated to us. So compound interest on $5,000 at 4%, which is a very reasonable target goal to attain. A lot of advisors say 6 to 8, Dave Ramsey says 12. So 4%, a really reasonable number to achieve. And in 10 years at $5,000 would equal 7,401, just if you put that principal payment. Now, if you put the next $5,000 in there, you can earn 17,401. You have that total. If you just put that $10,000 in there, the first 5,000 you leave in there for the whole 10 years, and the second 5,000 if you leave it in there for the whole 9 years. And that keeps going on for the next 10 years, as we have laid out here. And so by the end, if you invest all that money and earn an average of 4% on it and not touch it, and invest that principal payment right away into it, by the end you would have $106,000. Now let's compare that to your proposed contract. As you can see, the inflation rate, you lose more to inflation early on because you're earning so much in the front, and that has so much more time to lose value due to inflation, but it also makes up for it with, it gets a compound interest a lot longer than. So under this contract, your inflation is going to be still lower, but it's not going to be much lower considering you're earning $30,000 less in this contract. Whereas you're going to earn more interest from compounding interest. So let's look at a total, the raw numbers here. So again, as we stated before, you're going to earn $30,000 less in that. Assets are going to decrease under yours by $3,000 less a year. Inflation costs, you guys are only saving $1,000 of inflation under your contract despite earning $30,000 less. Compound interest, you're earning $2,200 more. So that is a win considering you are earning $30,000 less in revenue. But if you add the compound interest and subtract out the inflation, PSI's proposed contract is still coming at $26,000 short compared to G's. So this leads us to our conclusion. What do we think is a good conclusion? Well, and since you guys stated that you didn't need any, never stated that you needed to use this money for anything, you didn't need it to pay off a loan, to buy an asset, to expand, it would be a safe bet to say that you are going to invest that money in some type of mutual fund on the stock market. And you can't, and if you're not going to use that money, you don't need that money right now, it makes sense to put it in investment, earn that extra $26,000. This allows you flexibility in case you need to use that money some other time, but the earning potential to increase your revenues and net income is a lot better with G's proposed contract as compared to yours. Thank you for your time. We hope you found our advice useful.